for joining me here today. This is so much fun for me to be able to share some of my experience from A Course in Miracles with you. And for me, it's very, very important. This is something that I really enjoy and something that I take very, very seriously, because it's important that we show up in the world in whatever capacity that is, whatever that actually looks like for you. It is very, very important that we show up and we share our experience with other people. You don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to lead workshops or teach anything online necessarily, but each and every one of us has had a series of experiences in life from which we have learned, hopefully, a great deal. And these are to be shared. We really are to share these experiences because there is always someone out there waiting for your story to be told. Always. You may not ever know who this person is. They may live on the other side of the world. They may live in a completely different society. And of course, they might be listening to your message or hearing your message at a different time of day. Might be years from now, but you never know who you're going to impact. So by your sharing your experience today, whatever that looks like for you, you will have an impact that you both intend and that you don't intend. And it's the unintended impact that's so great. That is why spirituality emphasizes sharing, because everything is a shared experience. Well, so why am I leading off with this today? Well, it's really been on my mind today. And as we go into today's lesson for the workbook for students, which is lesson 38, there's nothing my holiness cannot do. It's very poignant and it fits right in with this, because today we're looking at our own power, at our own limitlessness, and literally our own reach, which goes far beyond what we think it does. The reality is, no matter where you are from in the world, we are not taught this in school. We're not taught that our holiness, our very being, reverses all of the laws of the world, all of the physical laws. Reverses. This is not an exaggeration. If you've not experienced this personally, at some point, whether it's right now or in 15 minutes or maybe in 15 years, now it might be in another future lifetime. Yeah. You will experience this. It is the destiny of each and every one of us. And the fact that you're watching this live stream means that, well, the proverbial train has left the station and you are headed directly for this ongoing, constant experience of direct communication with the source of all life. Headed for that unequivocally. All right. We're on our way. Now, how soon do we get there? Well, it really actually sort of depends on us, doesn't it? It depends on our willingness to choose love, quite frankly. It depends on our willingness to accept ideas such as today's in the workbook for students. It depends on our willingness to practice these ideas so that they become seamless, so that they become harmonious with everything that we say and do and how we show up in the world. It's up to our answering the call. So Let today, right now, be the moment that you answer it. And let the next moment be the moment that you answer it again. Because the Course tells us when we're talking about this, it says, everyone hears the call. Everyone hears the call to wake up. Few answer. Right? It's not like some of us don't hear it. And we all hear it in different ways, depending on where we live in the world, our circumstances, depending on who's delivering the message and in what way. So it's not necessarily online, an online live stream for everybody in the world. But here we are in this timeline in what we call the 21st century with this thing called the internet. So let's communicate with one another. Yeah, there's nothing that my holiness cannot do. So the very first sentence I've just been talking about, your holiness reverses all the laws of the world, all of them, all of them. Literally, it literally does. It's beyond every restriction of time, space, distance, and limits of any kind. It is limitless. We are limitless. It, being your holiness, is totally unlimited in its power because it establishes you as a son of God at one with the mind of his creator. Okay, at one with. Yes, let's let this sink in here. I've just read the first paragraph of the commentary for lesson 38 verbatim. There's a lot there, and it's powerful, and we don't realize, nor do we recognize our own power in the world. We get swept away, don't we? We may allow other people to sweep us away. It could be somebody's energy that gets us pulled into a state where we may or we may not want to be. But often we find ourselves, if we're scrolling Facebook, if we're watching television news, whatever the situation may be, we often find ourselves thinking about anything but the nature of our own true being, which is why every practice like this, like the workbook for students, like meditation, is so, so important. We're giving ourselves permission to change our minds. And the more we show up and practice, the more we change them. That is the goal. And you may have heard of spirituality in various traditions as being an unlearning. And in this sense, it's true. We're getting rid of our conditioning through these exercises, and we're arriving eventually at the truth of who we really are. Now, many layers can be ripped off and shed all at once. But of course, this is a process, which is why there are 365 lessons in the workbook for students. All of it is deliberate. All of it is by design. It's systematic for a reason. And these lessons build on one another in a cumulative, systematic fashion for a reason. So through our holiness, the very nature of our own creation is the power of God made manifest, okay? It is the way that the power of God is made manifest in the world. We're always teaching, like I mentioned at the outset of today's live stream, how you show up is very important. And it's important that you share your experience. The more experience you have, the more important it is that you share it with everyone around you. Again, and as always, this looks differently for different people. People live in different societies. They have different family and work structures. They live in different parts of the world. So there are different ways. They have different work environments. There's different ways of showing up, teaching and leading. But that is the job for all of us. We're all powerful and there are no limits. This means there are literally no limits. Our holiness, who we are, our nature, can accomplish anything. Anything. We are the answer to every question we could posit. We are the answer. Our holiness is the answer in connection to situations that appear, I should say, to involve ourself or that appear to involve others. The commentary literally states that our holiness can remove all pain and sorrow and solve all problems. There are no limits, and it is the answer. What I hope when you go through today's exercises and work on this beautiful idea, because it really is beautiful, I hope that you get a sense of how powerful you really are. I have to tell you, the world needs you to get this. It needs you, specifically you, to take this to heart and begin living these principles. It needs each and every one of us. This is our function. It's what we're here to do. It will look differently for you than it will for your neighbor because you have different proclivities. There are different people that you are, by design, by the will of God, supposed to meet. There are different people for you to teach than for your spouse to teach if you're married. There, if it could be your neighbor, it could be someone else, right? We're all supposed to connect with certain people. Happily, the Holy Spirit, the voice for God, the universal inspiration, however you want to characterize this force, will do that for us. All we have to do is choose in favor of love and get out of our own way. In other words, don't try to run the show ourselves. We don't need to. The power that we really are, if we were to stand in that and harness it, it would be the most powerful force imaginable. And it is. It is. There are no distinctions of any kind. I've said throughout these live streams, there is no separation of any kind. In other words, there are no distinctions. If there is no such thing as separation, there is no distinction of any kind. The Course says there is no order of difficulty. In miracles, one is just like another. Why? There are no distinctions. So things may appear harder or easier or more time-consuming, shorter in the world, but they're not. There are no distinctions. We are, in fact, by our own creation, all powerful. At one with the mind of the Creator, God, right? Source, whichever term you choose to use, it doesn't matter. We are literally an extension of that power. One with. One with. One does not mean one is separate or cut off, does it? Literally. In the practice periods for today, the workbook has us focus on particular situations. And this is important because there are situations in which we see ourselves. We're wrapped up in it, we're involved. And then there are situations that we do not appear to be involved in. And we may think that some other people are doing it, maybe on another continent, right, in another part of the world. And it's tempting for us to think that, okay, well, this involves somebody else. there's nothing I can do. Actually, that's not true. There's everything that we can do. Why? There are no limitations. There is no separation. There are no distinctions at all. So the workbook has us gradually get this idea established in our minds. And in italics here, it reads, in the situation involving whatever pain point this might be, in which I see myself, there's nothing that my holiness cannot do. In this situation involving other people, there's nothing that my holiness cannot do. Why? Well, God is love. You are love. You are not someone who loves. You are love itself. And as we experience in life, love does not have boundaries. It pays no attention to things like a construct like a house. It just goes through walls, literally. It pays no attention to things like international borders. It pays no attention to continents or different societies or any restriction or imposition or separation that we human beings could devise. It moves right through that, recognizing only itself. So, again, as always, it would be wonderful and very, very kind of you to sit in the energy of today's lesson and practice it. There is literally nothing that your holiness cannot do. So as always, I thank you for tuning in here. And I would like to pop on here and take a look at comments and questions live, if you catch them live here. And we've got a lot of people on here. I'm on here at a slightly different time today. So I very much appreciate everybody tuning in. Susan, hello. Hope, good evening. Deirdre, good evening. Elaine, Sophia, hi, how are you? And Cindy is here from the other room, live here in Phoenix, Arizona. Yes. So Deirdre, you've got a question. Yeah, I love this. Would you consider us, against all odds, miracles? Yeah, I would. And we get hung up as human beings on specific definitions, don't we? I mean, A Course in Miracles describes a miracle as a shift in our thought, a shift in our orientation away from fear and toward love, away from the ego and toward God, if you prefer. That's literally a miracle. So God's creation is, in fact, a miracle. A miracle. I mean, it just is. So yes, yes, and it's fun, isn't it? And it's empowering to think of us that way, because this is all of life. Yeah, all of life. That's what we are, is love itself, life itself. And things appear, of course, to have cycles. Like the human body doesn't last forever. It lasts several decades, hopefully, right? And then, it loses its usefulness. In other words, we leave it behind. And, it seems like things are really finite, but the more that we work in any kind of spiritual practice, the more we realize that there are no restrictions at all and no limits. And in fact, reality is not finite. It does not have a starting point and an end point, does not have a beginning or an end. Yeah, and love only recognizes itself. It literally transcends and flows through all obstacles. Yeah, God transcends and flows through all obstacles without even recognizing them. And the Course tells us throughout the text, also in places in the workbook for students, that God doesn't even recognize all of the complications that we impose on ourselves as human beings, that we solidify and we concretize and we take as so real. We say the struggle is real. Well, no, it's not. We made it all up. It's not real. God doesn't recognize that. So are we identifying with God, or are we identifying with the ego, the sense of separation, who wants us to continue to struggle over and over and over and over and over and over in what seems like an endless round? Yeah, I mean, it literally is like a wheel, as in Buddhism, it's called samsara, a wheel of suffering, basically, of one life after another, of repetition of the same patterns, until we should do what we're doing right now and seek the way out. We are the answer. That we are literally the answer to all questions. And it's not the ego that's the answer. It's our true nature that's the answer. And it's up to us to identify with one and not the other. All right. Well, guys, as always, I really appreciate all of the shares, all of the comments. Thank you all for tuning in here today. And this is daily, if you're just tuning in for the first time, daily live stream. Back episodes, incidentally, are available on Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel. So every show, this is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. Each show has its own playlist on the channel. So that is where I would recommend that you go if you'd like to catch some back episodes. So we'll be moving forward tomorrow in the workbook. So everyone, please have a beautiful day. Thank you all for tuning in, and it's been my pleasure to be here with you. We'll see you all tomorrow.